My wife went abroad for work, cheated, and got pregnant with her affair partner. Framed me as a deadbeat dad until her parents finally admitted the truth. I, a 27-year-old male, got married to my lovely wife about a year ago. My wife, 26, and I have been together for the past 5 years. Things were going well between us, and we decided marriage was the next step for our successful relationship. What I had not guessed was her infidelity. My wife has always been someone who has had wandering eyes. It started pretty small, with her maybe staring at someone attractive or liking their Instagram posts. The first time I saw an issue with this behavior was when she started leaving flirty comments on Instagram posts of our friends who were a bit more fitness-focused. My friends told me about it, and when I confronted her, she told me that if her words were being misunderstood as flirty by others, then that was not on her because she did not mean them as flirty. I believed her. This was early in the relationship, by the way. I'm talking about 2 years into the relationship. Anyway, after that, somewhere around our 3rd anniversary, she told me that she missed being single because she felt like she had been missing out on a lot of things for my sake. When I tried to ask her which things she'd been missing out on by being with me, she did not specify, but it was clear that she missed having sex with more than one person. As we were both pretty young and adventurous, I tried to give the whole open relationship thing a go. While on the surface it seemed like a great time for the 6 months it happened, I was not at all happy. I hated seeing her with so many different guys just for the sake of adventure. The open relationship stopped the moment she started seeing that I was getting a little cozy with another woman. She told me that she had considered everything and only wanted to be with me from that point forward. I was extremely happy to hear that. Fast forward a year and a half, when we were married, our married life was not unstable by any means. Everything was going pretty all right on the surface, and I had no idea what was about to happen to me. After our wedding, my wife got the opportunity to take up a job in Sweden. She had always wanted to work for the company, and going to Sweden for the job would look good on her resume. So when she told me about it, I was happy to hear that. But ever since she reached Sweden, her entire demeanor toward me changed. She was no longer interested in calling, and she barely ever asked me about how my day was going. Whenever I would call her, I would receive the same answer: "I am so busy. Why did you call right now?" and so on. By the end of 5 months, we were barely talking, but I could see her social media posts, and I could see that she was safe and sound. That was honestly all that mattered to me until I started noticing this guy. This guy was common in every picture she had and always lingered close to her, despite how big the group was. A little strange, if you ask me, but okay. On the rare occasions my wife and I did talk, I asked her about the guy, and she would snap at me, call me crazy and paranoid. Not only did she say that to my face, but she also told her family members about it. She told them that I was jealous, insecure, and a deadbeat husband who just wanted to cause drama by picking out her male coworkers. Her parents called me and had a talk with me, which can be boiled down to, "Hey, just trust our daughter because she would never." That was about it. They told me that they knew I was a jealous partner, but they never thought that I would be this jealous and weak. They were screaming their heads off at me and barely letting me talk. But what I got from that aggressive screaming match was that my wife was pregnant, and because I'm a delusional, paranoid person, I refused to be the father of the child and suggested that it was her coworker's kid. First of all, I did not know she was pregnant. Second of all, if she was pregnant, there was no way it was mine because I had not seen her for about 7 months at this point. When I tried to tell them that, they told me that their daughter had warned them that I would say things like that, and they simply could not believe that I would go as far as to deny everything and pretend that my wife did not come home when she had. I tried to call my wife and have a conversation with her, but she repeatedly refused to pick up my calls. It was an awful situation because I had not seen my wife in 7 months, and I had not had sex with her, so there was no way the child was mine. By snooping around a little, I found out that my wife returned home 3 months after leaving for Sweden, met up with her parents, and told them that she was living with me when she did not drop by our place or meet with me at all. It was jarring how she was doing everything because she simply ignored my existence. I learned about her 3-month return tour from my in-laws during their screaming sessions. By the time everything was said and done, I was ostracized by my in-laws. They slandered me online and told even my relatives about this. My parents were extremely shocked hearing the accusations. I am lucky that when I told them about what had truly happened, they believed me. I essentially went no contact with everyone and talked to the family lawyer about a divorce. They said that once we have lived separately for a year, I can file for it. I have not seen my wife for the past 6 months. I have not seen her at all, and I'm not too upset about it, if I'm being honest. I have come to terms with her disappearance. What I did not come to terms with was her parents calling me names and spreading the rumors about me that they did because their princess could never do wrong. Well, 3 days ago I got a call from my in-laws. They were extremely meek during the conversation, almost like they were being forced to do something they had no plan on doing. They were constantly beating around the bush, which pissed me off, so I asked them to say what they wanted to say. Well, they apologized. They told me that they were sorry for being that way toward me. They even went as far as to say that because of my culture, they assumed that all the typical stereotypes about men of my race being controlling, paranoid, and a little bit too clingy were true. I am not white, and they assumed that their daughter was telling the truth when she said that I wanted to be a deadbeat dad. However, as she gave birth a while ago, and they had the opportunity to meet the kid, it was very clear to them that my wife had lied to them about everything. It was indeed the affair partner's kid, and they apologized to me profusely. But I'm not sure. Will I be petty if I do not accept their apology? They wanted to meet with me face to face and have a conversation with me about everything and how we can all move past it. What do you guys think? Update 1, thank you everyone for all the pieces of advice. I did meet up with them, like some of you suggested, for closure, but they looked like they had seen a ghost when I showed up. They told me they were not expecting me to show up at all. They apologized to me again, and told me how they really should not have believed their daughter so blindly and should have given me the benefit of the doubt. I mean, sure, I can see where they're coming from, but at the same time, I do not think what they did is so easily forgivable, and I told them that. I also mentioned the racist connotations you guys pointed out, and oh boy, their faces were a sight to behold. I told them that I am not planning on forgiving them anytime soon, as when they defamed me, it was a very big public announcement, but when it comes to apologizing, it is completely under wraps. That is not very fair. After saying my piece, I left them at the restaurant because I wanted them to have their moment and figure out what they wanted to do with me concerning everything. Update 2, they contacted me again and told me that I was right about whatever I said. I have sent the signed documents to my lawyer, and I will be out of this wedding from hell in no time. Honestly, I feel so much better, to be honest. I cannot wait to be done with her and her family. On the other hand, getting those divorce papers signed has caused some drama in her life. From whatever I heard from my in-laws, the bits and pieces fell together. And essentially, my wife never told her coworker that she was married. She had a fiery relationship with him, got pregnant, had the baby, and now is engaged to be wedded to him. She essentially pretended so hard that I did not exist that she forgot that I did. The divorce papers were quite a shock for her and her Swedish partner. I think that is the reason why I got the signed copy so quickly, because she wanted to be out of what we had before she went together with him. Oh well, it is what it is. Thanks everyone. Not the asshole. Also, is it just me, or does anybody see the blatant racism the original poster's in-laws were showing? They assume that just because there is a stereotype about the original poster's race being deadbeat fathers, he would be one too. This is pathetic, and the family sucks. Not the asshole, original poster, but the signs of your marriage crumbling were there from the get-go. She asked for an open relationship so that she could have other bed partners. How could you miss such a sign? But either way, I'm happy to hear that she has signed the divorce papers, and you will be out of this toxic marriage soon. All is well that ends well. Next story, sorry if this ends up being ranty, but I'm so annoyed. My roommate has put in several years of effort to learn Spanish, and is essentially as fluent as one can be when they haven't spent a lot of time immersed in the language. I don't know any Spanish, and before anyone says I'm jealous about them knowing more languages, I know American, sign language, German, Latin, and I'm decently good at Japanese, so I know about learning languages. Fine, whatever, it's not a problem. The issue is that they have developed a habit of only talking in Spanish to me, not like a canned phrase here or there, not speaking Spanish to themselves, or with a friend, or asking me to help with flashcards or studying. No. They will reply to everything I say in Spanish, even in text. They know I don't know any Spanish, but every freaking conversation has become me saying something, them responding in Spanish, and me getting frustrated and asking them to just reply in English or at least American Sign Language, since we both speak that. It all kind of boiled over, and I snapped this morning and yelled at them saying, "You know I don't speak Spanish. You know I don't know what you're saying, so why the heck do you keep doing this?" They shot back, claiming they needed the practice, and that it's rude of me to always snap at them for learning a language. I got even more pissed and basically yelled, "Fine, no more Spanish in the apartment. Same for any other language we both don't know. If you speak to me in anything other than English or American Sign Language, I won't respond." They called me racist and locked themselves in their room. We haven't really talked since then, and my friends are pretty split on if I made the right call. So, am I the asshole? Edit. I mentioned the first few times that I didn't understand why. They were responding in Spanish because I couldn't understand it. They kept using the practice excuse, and I just decided to drop it at first, but it kept happening. Edit 2. I get what you all are saying about just responding in German or Latin, or whatever, but I don't know if that's actually going to solve anything. In my experience, fighting petty with petty just pisses everyone off more. Edit 3. Well, this all shows my ignorance, but sorry about the insistence on my roommate being white and having nothing to do with Spanish. I grew up basically on the border of the southern United States, so my first instinct for Spanish begins and ends with South America and the Hispanic community I grew up next to, so much so that I forgot Spain exists. That's my bad, and I apologize for that. Edit 4. Okay, I get it. I messed up with the white thing. Can we move on? Laughing my freaking ass off. This is a strange situation, but no, not the asshole. Your roommate needs to stop trying to speak Spanish to you all the time if you don't understand what the hell she's saying. She sounds like she's totally trolling you and trying to piss you off, especially since she's aware you don't know the language. You didn't snap at her for learning Spanish. You snapped at her for constantly speaking to you in a language she knows you don't understand. It's okay for her to learn a different language, but why does she feel the need to do this 24/7? Also, it's totally rude of her to use all of your conversations as a practice routine. Who the heck does this? That's so weird. Not the asshole. If she wants to practice and use it more in everyday life, she can go out and meet someone else who speaks the language so that she can continue to learn. You can even look for people to practice languages with online. I found people to practice speaking Thai within a couple of Discord groups I'm in. There is literally no reason for her to not speak to you in a language you both can understand. She's being rude. Next story. I am a 19-year-old female. My dad is 42, and my dad's wife, who we'll call Jan, is 48. My little brother is 14. A little backstory, I've never viewed Jan as a parental figure. She only married my dad 5 years ago after meeting about 14 months before that. On Thursdays, I go out with a friend and have a few drinks. Last week, I was the designated driver, and my friend covered dinner and a few drinks. This week, my friend was the designated driver, and I covered dinner and a few drinks. This Thursday has just gone, and I went for these drinks with my friend. I walked out the front door with Jan sitting at the dinner table doing a puzzle right next to the door. I didn't say anything because I don't need to. She said nothing to me and didn't ask me anything. Then I walked down our driveway and got picked up by my friend. Later on, when my friend dropped me home, my dad had gotten home by then and was in the kitchen. As I walked to the door to untie my shoes before I went inside, he said, "I was wondering why your car was home, but you weren't." I said, well, I told my little brother. Did he not say? Jan was still at the table by the door doing her puzzle when I said this. She piped up and said, "Your little brother isn't the other parent around here." Now, I had had a few drinks, so I was a little more confident than usual, so I said, "Well, there's only one." This was ignored, and Jan said, "You walked right past me behind my back." The chair she was sitting in to do her puzzle faces away from the door. At this point, I stayed quiet and just went through the door and into my room to put my wallet and shoes away. If I had said anything, I would have said, "And you didn't care to ask, so you didn't find out." Jan hasn't spoken to me since, not that that's unusual. She definitely seemed a bit miffed by it, though she has always liked to think of herself as a parent, even though she doesn't have any kids, and my siblings and I were too old to ever see her as one. My dad was fine that I went out and wasn't sure where I was. He trusts me not to get hurt or lost. If he was concerned, he would have called me. Edit. Apparently, it's important to the situation. Jan treats me like an obstacle to a marriage she rushed into against everyone's better advice. By everyone, I mean her parents, my dad's parents, her sister, my dad's sister, and all their friends. Heck, even as a 14-year-old, I could see they hadn't spent enough time getting to know each other. Not the asshole. You spoke the truth. Your dad doesn't have any problem with it. It seems only Jan who sees herself as more than she is. I despise the entitlement people feel once married to anoint themselves as parents or guardians of other people's children, unless that's been openly discussed and agreed upon. In this case, it clearly hasn't been, and even if it was when you were a minor, you aren't anymore, so it would be over. Don't be surprised if Jan uses this as a wedge issue. I wouldn't call you the asshole here. It is closer to everyone sucks here at a fairly low level. It wouldn't hurt to casually say, "See you later, I'm out with friends," just as a courteous comment to someone you live with. That wouldn't be asking permission or putting her in the parental position. At the same time, her comment was a bit resentful, and your response was also sharp. A bit petty all the way around, but it shouldn't need to turn into a big thing. While you're living at home, this is just nice manners to update people. Even if you're old enough to be making your own decisions. Not the asshole. People who marry into families need to understand that that does not automatically make you somebody's mom or dad, especially not if that person is already an adult. A 19-year-old isn't in need of a stepmom being forced upon her, and shouldn't feel pressured into treating somebody like such. As I sit alone in my apartment, the silence feels both comforting and oppressive. A stark contrast to the chaos that has defined my life over the past year. The betrayal by my wife, someone I loved and trusted with every fiber of my being, has left a wound so deep it sometimes feels like it will never heal. We were together for 5 years, building what I thought was a partnership grounded in love, respect, and shared dreams. The decision to marry felt like the natural culmination of those years, a promise to face the future together. But now, looking back, I see the cracks that were always there, the signs I ignored because I wanted so desperately to believe in her, in us. Her infidelity, discovered after she took that job in Sweden, wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage, it was a betrayal of the person I thought she was. It's left me questioning everything, from my judgment to my worth. The pain is multifaceted, layered with anger, shame, and a profound sense of loss. I'm angry at her for her deceit, for the way she dismissed my concerns as paranoia when I asked about the man in her photos, for the way she spun a narrative to her family that painted me as the villain. Her flirty comments on social media, her longing for the freedom of single life, her push for an open relationship. All of these were red flags I should have heeded. But love is blinding, isn't it? I wanted to trust her, to believe that her assurances were genuine when she said she only wanted me after we ended the open relationship experiment. That 6-month period was torture, watching her with other men while I tried to convince myself it was just adventure, not a rejection of me. I hated every second of it, and yet I stayed, hoping she'd see my devotion and choose me fully. When she did, I felt like I'd won something precious. Now, I see it was just another manipulation, a way to keep me tethered while she planned her escape. The anger doesn't stop with her. I'm furious at her parents, who so readily believed her lies and turned on me with venomous accusations. Their words, dripping with racist stereotypes about my culture, cut deeper than I expected. They called me jealous, insecure, a deadbeat husband, who refused to accept his own child. The audacity of their assumptions, fueled by prejudice, made me feel like less than human. I wasn't just fighting against my wife's betrayal, I was fighting against a narrative they constructed to absolve their daughter of any wrongdoing. Being ostracized by them, slandered online, and having my reputation dragged through the mud was humiliating. I felt powerless, silenced by their refusal to listen, their screams drowning out my attempts to explain that I hadn't seen my wife in 7 months, that there was no way the child was mine. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was public, a spectacle that left me isolated and questioning my place in the world. Yet beneath the anger, there's a profound sadness for what could have been. I mourned the life we planned, the future where we'd grow old together, maybe start a family of our own. I grieve the trust I lost, not just in her but in others, wondering if I'll ever be able to open my heart again without fear of it being shattered. There's a part of me that feels foolish, naive for believing in her despite the signs, for thinking love could overcome her wandering eyes and restless spirit. I keep replaying moments in my mind, her dismissive tone when I called her in Sweden, the coldness in her voice when she called me paranoid, the silence that followed when I tried to reach out. Each memory is a reminder of how little I mattered to her in the end. It's a heavy weight to carry, knowing that the person I poured my heart into could erase me so easily, pretending I didn't exist while she built a new life with someone else. But there's also relief, a quiet strength growing within me. When her parents called to apologize, their voices meek and their words tinged with regret, it was a validation I didn't know I needed. They saw the truth, that the child wasn't mine, that their daughter had lied to them, to everyone. Their apology, though marred by their admission of racist assumptions, was a crack in the wall of injustice I'd been up against. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave me a sense of vindication. I'm not the monster they painted me as. I'm not the paranoid, controlling man they assumed I was because of my race. That realization has been a lifeline, pulling me out of the darkness of self-doubt. Signing the divorce papers was another step toward freedom. It felt like shedding a heavy chain, one that had been dragging me down with every unanswered call and every lie. Knowing that she's moved on, engaged to her affair partner, and living a life built on deception doesn't hurt as much as I thought it would. Instead, It's a reminder that I'm better off without her. I'm grateful for my family, who stood by me when her parents turned against me. Their belief in my truth anchored me when I felt like I was drowning. My parents' shock at the accusations, their unwavering support when I explained what had happened, reminded me that I'm not alone. They've been my rock, and their love has helped me rebuild my sense of self. I'm also proud of myself, something I couldn't have said a year ago. Despite the pain, I've kept going. I've worked. I've healed. I've started to carve out a life that's mine alone. It's not perfect. There are days when the anger flares up or the sadness creeps in, but it's honest. I'm learning to value my worth, to recognize that I deserve relationships built on mutual respect and trust. The idea of starting over is daunting, but it's also exciting. I'm 27 and I have time to build something new, something real. There's a part of me that's still healing, and maybe it always will be. The scars of betrayal don't fade easily, and the sting of being judged for my culture may linger longer than I'd like. But I'm finding strength in the process. I'm learning to forgive myself for missing the signs, for holding on too long, for hoping she'd change. I'm learning to let go of the need for her parents' approval, or their public apology to match the public humiliation they put me through. Their private mea culpa doesn't erase the damage, and I'm okay with not forgiving them yet. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about making peace with it, and I'm getting there step by step. Looking forward, I feel a spark of hope. I want to build a life surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not for what they assume I should be. I want to love again, but this time with eyes wide open, with a heart that's wiser but still capable of trust. The pain has taught me resilience. The betrayal has taught me discernment. And the loss has taught me to cherish what truly matters. I'm not defined by my wife's actions or her parents' prejudice. I'm defined by my ability to rise above, to keep moving forward, to choose myself. This ordeal has been a crucible, burning away the parts of me that were naive and leaving behind someone stronger, someone ready to embrace a future where I'm enough. And for the first time in a long time, I believe that I am.